She was setting the final platter of roasted prime rib onto the dining room table when the phone rang. I glanced at the screen. It was my husband, Jake. He should have been logging overtime hours at the office. "Hello?" I answered, hastily wiping my hands as I pressed the call button. "Laura, we need to talk." Jake's voice was as calm as if he were commenting on the weather. "Next week, Wednesday, the whole family is leaving for Maui. 1 week. I've already booked the plane tickets and the hotel." At that moment, without realizing it, I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. Again. This was the third time. Like the calm before a storm, my voice sounded strangely even. "Right, your dad, your mom, your brother Patrick, and his fiancée, Ashley, your aunt, and your cousin. 6 people." I deliberately used a cheerful tone. "The villa I booked only has 3 bedrooms, and if we squeeze too many people in, it will be a mess. So, you don't come." I took a deep breath. My eyes scanned the table loaded with 2 main courses and a soup, all meticulously prepared, everything Jake loved. Now, all that food, along with my hopes, was destined for the garbage disposal. "I see. Well, have a wonderful time." My voice seemed a distant echo. "I knew you would understand, Laura. You're the most supportive." I could hear Jake's sigh of relief. "Oh, and while I'm gone, don't forget to water the garden flowers and my high-maintenance orchids, okay?" Agreed." I hung up. I stood there, rooted to the spot. The phone screen went black, like a light going out behind my eyes. The third time. 3 years of marriage, and not once had I been invited on this annual family trip. The first time, the excuse was that I had just suffered a miscarriage, and a long trip would be too much for me. The second, that my job was too demanding, and it would be too hard to request time off. This year, he hadn't even bothered to find a convincing excuse. I began to clear the table mechanically, scraping the untouched food into the trash can. Suddenly, my wrist trembled, and a platter slipped from my hands, shattering on the floor. Crash. I stared at the fragments scattered across the polished oak. How much they resembled me right now, like this marriage, brilliant on the outside, but shattering at the slightest contact. My phone rang again. It was the in-laws group chat. A message from my mother-in-law. "Guys, we're repeating Maui this year. Leaving Wednesday, so don't forget the sunblock. They say it's scorching hot there," followed by a flurry of celebration emojis. I stared intently at the words. The whole family. My eyes welled up. To them, I wasn't family. I was just a stranger, an unpaid assistant. I pulled out the family photo they took last year in the Bahamas. In it, Jake had his arm wrapped around his brother Patrick's shoulder. My mother-in-law, in a flashy dress, sat centered, and my father-in-law, looking solemn, stood to the side. Alongside them were their cousin and Patrick's girlfriend at the time. All 7 were beaming, with the azure sea and palm trees in the background. That day, I was home alone, burning up with a fever. I called Jake, and he said, "Take some Tylenol and get some rest. You'll be fine. We're deep-sea diving, and the signal is bad. Gotta go." And he hung up. I sank to the floor and began picking up the ceramic pieces one by one. I cut a finger, and blood bloomed, but that wound was nothing compared to the pain in my soul. The phone rang again. It was a video call from Chloe, my best friend. I wiped my tears, fixed my expression as best I could, and answered. "Laura, you won't believe the obnoxious client who came into the firm today." Chloe's voice stopped abruptly. She squinted and brought her face closer to the screen. "What's wrong? Your eyes are red." "It's nothing. I was chopping onions, and they started stinging." I tried to smile. "Don't lie to me. You think I've known you for over 10 years for nothing?" Chloe frowned. "What has that idiot Jake done this time?" Under her penetrating gaze, my defenses crumbled. I explained everything briefly, my voice getting lower and lower, almost a whisper. "I feel like I'm the laughingstock." "The laughingstock? It sounds to me like Jake and his family are the ones making fools of themselves." "Laura, please wake up. These people don't consider you family." I fell silent. Deep down, I already knew it. I just didn't want to admit it. 3 years ago, at our spectacular wedding, Jake knelt and promised me eternal happiness. The image was still vivid in my memory. How had we reached this point in the blink of an eye? Laura, Chloe's voice suddenly turned serious. Do you remember signing a prenuptial agreement? I nodded. It was a month before the wedding. Jake suddenly proposed a separation of assets, claiming it was a family tradition. Although I felt uncomfortable, I signed it to prove I wasn't after his money. And the house is in your name. The ownership is clear. It was my parents' wedding gift. We registered it as my separate property, only in my name. I frowned. Why do you ask? No reason, Chloe hesitated. I just want you to take better care of yourself. Hey, since his family is going away next week, why don't you come stay at my place for a few days so you're not alone? I politely declined her offer. After hanging up, I stood by the living room window, looking out at the perfectly manicured lawn that Jake maintained so meticulously. We bought this suburban estate when we got married. My parents paid the down payment, and I covered the renovation costs with years of savings. Jake's family contributed a minimal amount, but they insisted his name be on the deed. The excuse was that a man needed to maintain appearances. The night deepened. I showered and went to bed like an automaton. Jake wouldn't be home tonight either. He had late work. For the past 6 months, his overtime hours had become more frequent, and I had stopped asking. Lying there, staring at the ceiling, an idea crossed my mind. Did I really want to continue this marriage? For the past 3 years, I had strived to be a good wife and an exemplary daughter-in-law. I cared for my husband meticulously and even tolerated my brother-in-law's impertinence. And what had I received in return? Deliberate exclusion from the group chat, my husband's increasingly frequent absences, and an annual family trip from which I was always excluded. The phone lit up. A message from Jake. Honey, still awake? I won't be home next week, so lock the door securely. Oh, Mom wants a typical Maui souvenir. Buy some nice gift boxes tomorrow and leave them ready for her. Reading the message, I laughed until I cried. It was over. Truly over. How long do you plan to keep deceiving yourself, Laura? I wiped my tears and texted Chloe. Do you have a window tomorrow? I need legal counsel. Now. The cold moon shone high in the sky. I knew some things were irreversible. The morning sun filtered through the bedroom curtains. I opened my eyes, but the other side of the bed was still empty. Jake, predictably, hadn't come home last night. It was the 7th time this month. I got up and opened the closet. My fingers brushed past countless dresses before stopping at an elegant suit jacket. I chose it deliberately today. Jake always said dresses made me look like a model wife. I washed my face and looked in the mirror. My 9-year-old face already reflected deep exhaustion. The fine lines under my eyes and the dull skin were a testament to 3 years of repressed life. I covered the traces of last night's tears with makeup. Ding-dong. The doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Chloe's characteristic short hair and sharp gaze. She carried 2 coffees and a paper bag emanating a delicious pastry smell. I knew you hadn't had breakfast. As soon as I opened the door, she put the food in my hands. Americano with a splash of sugar-free milk and your favorite croissant. The intense aroma of the coffee comforted me. In this city, aside from the coffee shop owner, Chloe was the only one who remembered my preferences. Jake didn't even know I was allergic to peanuts. Last year, at a family gathering, he insisted on serving me a salad full of nuts, saying it was delicious. Tell me, what legal counsel do you need? Chloe pulled her laptop from her bag and got straight to the point. I stirred my coffee and began to speak, weighing each word. If I wanted a divorce, how could I protect my rights? Chloe's eyes gleamed. Finally, you've come to your senses. She quickly opened several files. First, we need to clarify your marital property situation. You said the house is in your name, right? Yes. It was my parents' wedding gift. I registered it as my sole property. But after we got married, Jake insisted I add his name. For appearances, he said. And I, being weak, agreed. I offered a bitter smile. Chloe's forehead wrinkled. When was that? About 6 months after the wedding, he asked me every day that his colleagues' wives had done it, that he was the only one who hadn't, and was embarrassed at the office. Chloe's fingers flew across the keyboard. This is a bit complicated, but since it's separate property and you paid the down payment, that part and the appreciation belong to you. Who paid for the renovation? Mostly me. With the money I saved working about $70,000. Jake's family contributed about $15,000. Do you have proof? I nodded. I kept the renovation contract and all the receipts. Chloe seemed satisfied. Next is gathering evidence. Do you know exactly how much Jake earns? The question left me blank. Jake's income. Since we married, we managed our own money. He had given me an approximate figure, but I never asked for details. He probably earns about $100,000 a year. He transfers $1,000 a month to me for household expenses. The rest, we manage separately. Chloe's eyebrows nearly met. What? You've been married for 3 years and still have separate accounts, and I pay the mortgage? My voice trailed off. Jake said he had to invest his money and that his parents are getting old, so he needed a cushion for medical expenses. Laura, Chloe pounded the table. Don't you realize they are scamming you? That is not a normal marriage. My eyes filled with tears again. Telling it, even I thought it sounded ridiculous. To others, I was the lady living in a luxury suburban estate, driving a high-end car, but the reality was I had to think twice before buying a decent coat. Meanwhile, Jake bought his mother a $20,000 gold bracelet without batting an eye. We need to find out his true financial situation, Chloe said seriously. Do you have access to his computer or documents? The office is always locked. He says he has confidential client information. Suddenly, I remembered something. But I have an emergency key. I could go in when he's not there. Be careful. You can't let him catch you, she warned. The crucial things are bank statements, investment records, and… She paused. Do you have any proof of infidelity? My heart skipped a beat. Infidelity, the possibility I had tried to ignore with all my might, was finally surfacing. When Chloe left, I stood in front of the office door with the key in my hand. When we married, we promised to respect our privacy. That's why I had never entered his personal space without permission. Today, I had to break that rule. The sound of the key in the lock seemed abnormally loud. As I opened the door, a faint smell of men's cologne hit me. The office was impeccably tidy. The law books on the shelf were arranged by height. The desk had not a speck of dust. I checked the drawers. The top one held a few unimportant work documents. The middle one, several photo albums. I opened them randomly. They only contained photos of Jake and his family, barely a few where the two of us appeared together. The bottom drawer was locked. That anomaly only increased my suspicions. Looking around, my eyes fell on a small safe behind the bookshelf. Jake had bought it last year to store important documents. I tried the date of our anniversary. Error. His birthday. Error. Finally, I entered his mother's birthday. The safe clicked open. Inside was a stack of well-organized documents. On top of everything, a copy of the property deed. Opening it, I froze. It was the deed to my house, but in the owners section, it clearly read Jake Williams and Laura Miller under a co-ownership regime. I perfectly remembered that initially it was just about adding his name with a minority share. I kept searching and found several bank statements. The balance of Jake's account stunned me. It wasn't the $150,000 he had told me, but nearly $1.5 million. Furthermore, there were regular monthly transfers between $3,000 and $15,000 to a certain Samantha. At the bottom was an elegant velvet jewelry box. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, a diamond necklace I had never seen. The receipt read Cartier. The price exceeded $25,000. The purchase date was my birthday last year, but my gift had been a simple bouquet of roses. Under the box was another photo. Jake was embracing a young woman by a resort pool. They were wearing matching swimwear and smiling radiantly. On the reverse, written, "With my love, Samantha, in Maui, August 2023. Just the week he claimed he had a business trip. My world crashed down. So many late nights, the evasive excuses, the unexplained expenses, everything fit. The phone vibrating nearly made me drop the photo. It was Jake. "Honey, I won't be home for dinner tonight. Company party." I stared at the message and then looked at his WhatsApp profile picture. He was seated at a luxury restaurant. The wine glass and a hand with red-painted nails on the other side of the table were reflected in the lens. Zooming in, the silhouettes of him and a long-haired woman were visible in the window's reflection. In that moment, my mind became strangely clear. All my doubts and self-blame had found an answer. I wasn't paranoid or overly sensitive. I was simply an idiot who was being cheated on. Calmly, I photographed all the evidence and sent it to Chloe's encrypted email. Then I put everything back in place. I closed the safe and left the office. At 10 p.m., Jake arrived home smelling of alcohol. Sitting on the living room sofa, I watched him with an empty gaze as he stumbled, taking off his shoes. "Honey, still awake?" He approached to kiss me, but I turned my head. "You smell of perfume." "I don't like it," I said flatly. Jake paused for a moment, and then laughed. "It was work, honey. Must have picked up a little. Those clients wear strong colognes." "Oh, really?" I looked him straight in the eyes. "Is that Samantha also a client?" Jake's expression froze. His drunken haze seemed to vanish halfway. "What are you talking about?" "Nothing. I just thought of it. You must be exhausted, having to entertain that client so many times a month." Jake's face turned from red to white. "Laura, listen to me. I can explain." "You don't need to explain anything." I cut him off. "I'm tired. I'm going to sleep. Tomorrow, I have to go buy those boxes for your mother's gifts. You hadn't forgotten, had you?" I turned and went into the bedroom. Jake remained alone in the living room, looking completely bewildered. As I closed the door, I leaned against it. I heard his nervous footsteps outside and his voice whispering on the phone. He was undoubtedly alerting Samantha. The phone lit up. A message from Chloe. "Evidence received. With this, he's lost. Come to the firm tomorrow and we'll discuss details. And this time, listen to everything I say." I replied with an okay and deleted the conversation history. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. My mind was strangely calm. The old Laura would have spent the night crying, but the current one only felt like laughing. Jake carefully opened the door and lay down beside me as if nothing had happened. In the dark, I could hear him deliberately holding his breath. He was pretending to be asleep. "Jake!" I broke the silence suddenly. "What hotel are you going to in Maui?" His body visibly tensed. A normal resort, one the company has a deal with." "Oh, really?" I chuckled lightly. "It's not the Ritz-Carlton Maui again, is it? I hear the villas with private pools are awfully expensive." Jake jumped up. "Have you been spying on me?" "Spying?" I turned to look at him. The moonlight illuminated his face, distorted by panic and anger. "Do I need to? You forgot to block me on Facebook. November last year. Check-in at the Ritz-Carlton Maui. By the way, the Cartier necklace in the photo was gorgeous." Jake's face twisted. "Laura, how dare you look at my phone? Compared to you cheating on me looking at your phone isn't such a big deal, is it?" I got up and turned on the bedside lamp. 3 years of marriage with separate accounts. Me, like an idiot, serving your entire family, and it turns out you had someone else on the side. Honestly, Jake, you don't disappoint." Jake's face went pale, and he suddenly grabbed a pillow and hurled it against the wall with all his might. "Stop it. You think I did this because I wanted to? I'm sick of seeing that long face every day when I come home. Samantha is 100 times more affectionate than you. She knows how to make a man happy." I watched his mad outburst in silence. Suddenly, it all seemed so ridiculous. This was the man I had defied my parents to marry. A coward who, after being unfaithful, still had the audacity to blame others. "Fine, let's get divorced," I said lightly. "You go with Samantha, and I'll live my life peacefully." "Divorce?" Jake let out a laugh as if he'd heard the joke of the century. "In your dreams. Half of this house is mine. If you divorce, what are you going to live on? With your small salary, you can't even afford the mortgage." So that was it. He had it all calculated. He was sure I would never dare ask for a divorce. Seeing his smug face, I started laughing. Well, we'll see. Jake hadn't expected that reaction and was left speechless. I lay back down, turned off the light, and turned my back to him. I felt his gaze of confusion and anger fixed on my back in the darkness. "Laura," he finally ground out through clenched teeth. Don't even think about doing anything stupid. I've had my eye on this house for a while. My brother Patrick is getting married and needs a place." So that was it. I closed my eyes, my nails dug into my palms. The whole family had been planning this for a long time. Eating my food, living in my house, and eventually taking it from me to house the brother-in-law. Jake started snoring. I didn't sleep all night. At dawn, I quietly got up. I gathered a few essentials and important documents and slipped out of the house. The morning air was particularly fresh. I took a deep breath and called Chloe. "Chloe, I've decided. I'm going to get back everything that's mine." On the other end of the line, Chloe's voice was full of determination. "That's the spirit. I'm waiting for you at the firm. The war has begun." I hung up and hailed a taxi. In the rearview mirror, I watched the estate where I had lived for 3 years grow smaller and smaller. This time, I would not falter. Chloe's law firm was on the 28th floor of a glass tower in downtown Manhattan. I sat in the conference room. In front of me, Chloe had printed all the evidence. "The situation is worse than I thought," she said, adjusting her glasses. "According to these bank movements, in the last 2 years, Jake has transferred a total of $330,000 to that Samantha. This is a clear act of dissipation of marital assets." I nodded silently. My fingers unconsciously traced those cold figures, $330,000, the equivalent of several years of my salary, and he had given it away so easily to another woman. But the most serious thing is this. Chloe unfolded a sheaf of papers. I checked Jake's credit history. 3 months ago, he applied for an $800,000 loan. Purpose, home renovation. But there were no recent renovation plans for your house, right? $800,000. I suddenly looked up. He didn't say a word. "He wasn't planning to tell you," Chloe said knowingly. "That money, 1 week after entering his account, was transferred to Samantha in 5 installments. I believe that jerk bought that woman a house." My voice trembled. "Do you really think so?" "It's highly likely." Chloe nodded. "But that's not the most urgent problem. Look at this." She opened a digital file. It contained a transcript of the WhatsApp conversations between Jake and his brother Patrick. "I got this through a special channel," Chloe explained. "It's hard to use as direct evidence in a trial, but it's enough to know what they were planning." "Bro, did you tell your wife about the house mortgage?" Patrick asked. "Not yet. I plan to tell her after the trip. She's been acting weird lately. I think she suspects Samantha." "Then what?" "We have to put down the deposit for the condo my fiancé Ashley and I saw next week. Don't rush. My name is on the deed too. Even if she objects, she can't do anything. If she makes it difficult, I'll tell Mom to talk to her. Mom always gets through to her." I stared at the screen. I felt like a rock was crushing my chest. They had been planning for a long time to mortgage my house to buy an apartment for my brother-in-law. Legally, to establish a mortgage on co-owned property, the consent of only one owner is sometimes enough, Chloe said seriously. "If they act first, you will find yourself in a very unfavorable situation." "So, what do I do?" I clenched my fists. "Do I have to stand idly by?" "Of course not." A sharp light gleamed in Chloe's eyes. "We have to act first. Your parents paid the down payment, and you paid for most of the renovation. You have proof of everything. We can argue that Jake is the primary cause of the marriage breakdown and request a new division of assets." I thought for a moment, and suddenly something occurred to me. "Chloe, what if I could prove that the co-ownership deed was forged by Jake?" Chloe's eyes lit up. "Do you have proof?" "I'm not sure, but I clearly remember that initially it was co-ownership with shares. Also, the stamp and signature on the deed in the safe looked slightly different." "This could be our turning point," Chloe exclaimed, pounding the table excitedly. "If we prove the deed was falsified, not only would the mortgage be void, but Jake could face criminal charges." We drew up a general plan. First, I had to secretly gather more evidence. Second, quickly verify the authenticity of the deed. And finally, prepare the divorce petition. As I left the firm, Chloe gave me a set of keys. "It's a small apartment I own. It's empty right now. Stay there for the time being. Don't go back to the house. A cornered Jake could do anything." I hugged her gratefully. Leaving the building, the sunlight dazzled me. My phone rang. A call from Jake. "Laura, where have you gone?" Jake's voice was laced with anger. "My mother called me. She says you haven't sent her the gift boxes yet. She needs them for tomorrow." I almost laughed. With everything going on, his first reaction was to scold me for not having run an errand for his mother. "I'm out. I have some urgent matters to resolve," I said calmly. "The boxes are ordered. They will be delivered directly to your mother's house this afternoon." Jake seemed confused. He hadn't expected me to be so cooperative. Okay, fine. Hey, about last night." "Last night?" I asked deliberately. "You were very drunk. You kept talking nonsense." There was a few seconds of silence on the other end. Yeah, I was very drunk. I don't remember anything." "Well, when are you coming home?" "I think it'll take a while. Something urgent came up at work. Don't wait up for me." I invented an excuse and hung up. I went straight to the county recorder's office. With a copy of the original deed and my ID, I successfully checked the house's registration history. Indeed, it clearly stated, co-ownership with shares, Laura Miller 70%, Jake Williams 30%. However, the current deed indicated a 50/50 co-ownership. That meant Jake had falsified the documents somehow. I contained my euphoria, immediately took a photo, and sent it to Chloe. Bingo. The bastard falsified the type of co-ownership. This time, he's finished. "Great," Chloe replied instantly. Now, I needed to obtain the original of that falsified deed. It wouldn't be easy. Jake would undoubtedly hide it consciously. I decided to risk it and return to the house one more time. At 4 p.m., I took advantage of Jake being in a meeting at the office to return. As soon as I opened the door, I noticed something was wrong. The living room was rummaged through, and the drawers of my dresser were wide open. Someone had been looking for something. I quietly went upstairs. I heard a noise in the office. Through the crack in the door, I saw Jake sweating profusely, rummaging through papers. He kept cursing softly. He had come home earlier than expected to look for the deed. I crept downstairs and deliberately slammed the front door shut. "Honey, I'm home." A startled sound came from upstairs, followed by Jake's voice, trying to sound calm. "Oh, hey, honey, I was in the office looking for some papers." I went up and opened the office door. Jake stood by the desk, forcing a smile, but the drops of sweat on his forehead and his messy hair betrayed his nervousness. "Why are you back so early?" I asked, feigning concern. "Oh, nothing much to do at the office. Hey, have you seen the house deed? I need some documents to apply for a loan at work." Just as I expected. Inside, I smiled coldly, but outwardly, I looked bewildered. "It's not in the safe." I looked, and it's not there, Jake said nervously. "You didn't put it somewhere else, did you? Think hard." I pretended to think, and then I said, "Remember last month they asked us to update the owner's details at the condo association office? I took it to make a photocopy, and well, my mother has it. She said she wanted to see it, and I left it with her." Jake's face went white as paper. "What? How could you give something so important to someone else?" "My mother is someone else," I retorted. "Besides, my name is on the deed too. What's the problem with my own family having it?" Jake was speechless. A vein throbbed on his forehead. "Go get it right now. I need it urgently for work. My mother went on a trip. She won't be back until next month," I said, blinking innocently. "Are you in such a hurry? Well, apply for the loan with the apartment you have in your name." Jake had a small apartment in his name as separate property that he rented out. Of course, he didn't want to touch his own assets. "Forget it. I'll find another way," he snapped irritably. Suddenly, he remembered something. "Hey, do you really not remember anything I said last night? You said a lot of things. You talked about Samantha, about Maui, about a necklace." I watched his face harden, and then I laughed. "Just kidding. You didn't say anything. You slept like a log." Jake's expression of relief was worth framing. He came closer to hug me. "Honey, I've been very busy lately, and I've neglected you. When I get back from the trip, we'll spend time together, just the two of us." I skillfully dodged his arms. "Hurry up and pack. You have an early flight tomorrow." Jake withdrew his arms awkwardly and went upstairs. Watching his back, I knew I had to keep up the pretense. The most important thing now was to reassure him and buy time. After dinner, Jake received a call and rushed out, surely to meet Samantha and plan their strategy. I immediately searched the office thoroughly. Finally, on the highest shelf, inside a thick manual of criminal law, I found the falsified deed. I quickly photographed it as evidence and put it back in place. Just as I was about to leave, an envelope in the desk drawer caught my attention. Opening it, I found, to my surprise, an already drafted mortgage loan agreement. The house appraisal was $1.2 million, the loan amount $800,000, and the purpose, joint family investment. The most terrifying thing was that in the borrower's signature box, my signature was very convincingly forged. It was not mine. Jake had forged my signature. With trembling hands, I photographed all the evidence and carefully returned them to their place. Just as I was about to leave the office, the phone rang. It was my mother-in-law, Laura. Her voice was still arrogant. "The gift boxes are coming tomorrow, right? They need to be the good ones, with golden details. Don't mess up." "Yes, mother-in-law, don't worry. Everything is ready," I replied, repressing the nausea. She continued with her orders. "While we're traveling, don't forget to water the houseplants once a week. Jake's orchids are very expensive. Oh, and I have some pickles in the fridge that I made. They'll be ready next week, so take them out and put them in the sun to dry." I responded with monosyllables while looking at the clock. It was already 10 p.m. Jake still hadn't returned. I hung up and decided not to wait any longer. I gathered some clothes and important documents and left the estate for Chloe's apartment. On the way, I called my parents and explained the situation broadly. Contrary to what I expected, my father didn't scold me for not listening to him. Instead, he said firmly, "Daughter, whatever decision you make, your family will always be by your side. We gave you that house. Don't let that man's family take it from you." On the other end of the line, I heard my mother crying. "My poor silly girl, how could you go through all this without telling us sooner?" After hanging up, I finally broke down. I cried floods in the backseat of the taxi. I wasn't fighting alone. My pride had simply prevented me from showing vulnerability to my family. Chloe's apartment was small but cozy. I took a hot shower and, lying in bed, reviewed my findings. Jake's crimes were increasingly obvious. Infidelity, concealment of assets, forgery of documents, and signature on a contract. Any of them was enough for him to pay a high price before the law. The phone lit up. A WhatsApp message from Jake. "Honey, an unforeseen business trip came up. I'll be out for a few days. I'll meet the family directly in Maui. We'll talk about the house when I get back." I smiled scornfully and didn't reply. I opened Facebook and saw that Samantha had posted something new. "Thank you for coming. The best gift." The attached photo showed a Cartier bracelet and a man's hand. The watch on that man's wrist was the one I had given Jake for his birthday last year. Calmly, I took a screenshot, saved it, and turned off the phone. Tomorrow, the war would enter a new phase, and this time, there would be no mercy. The morning light filtered through the thin curtains. As I opened my eyes, it took me a few seconds to realize where I was. Chloe's apartment was small, but I had slept better than I had in the last 3 years. I had 3 missed calls on my phone, all from Jake, and a WhatsApp message. "Why aren't you picking up the phone? I'm getting on the plane. Lock the house door securely." I smiled disdainfully and blocked his number and all his profiles. I got up and opened the fridge. Chloe's refrigerator, a workaholic's, was empty except for some water bottles and an expired yogurt. After showering, I made myself a coffee, turned on the laptop, and started planning. Last night, Chloe had sent me a detailed list of actions. The first was to secure my personal assets. I logged into my online banking and checked all my accounts. Luckily, my salary was deposited into an account Jake didn't know about. In the last 3 years, I had managed to save almost $60,000. In our joint account, there was $35,000 in savings. In theory, we were each entitled to half. I smiled bitterly. Jake had already sent his lover over $300,000. I called the bank and, alleging possible suspicious activity, temporarily froze the joint account. That way, Jake couldn't withdraw money during his trip. The next thing was the most important: the house. Following Chloe's advice, I had to report the loss of the deed and quickly request a duplicate, but first, I had to make sure Jake couldn't interfere. The phone rang. It was my father. "Daughter, I spoke with my old friend, Attorney Thompson. He has a lot of experience in real estate litigation. He says we have to sue Jake for document forgery as soon as possible and, at the same time, request urgent precautionary measures." "Dad." A lump formed in my throat. "I'm sorry I didn't listen to you." "Nonsense." My father's voice was firm. "The important thing now is that you recover what is yours. Your mother and I are coming to New York this afternoon. We'll stay at a hotel. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Hanging up, I felt my eyes moisten. My parents would always be my refuge, and I had alienated myself from them for 3 years because of an insignificant man. After getting ready, I went directly to the county recorder's office. With a copy of the original deed and my ID, I successfully completed the lost deed report procedure. The clerk informed me that the new deed would take about 7 business days to be issued. "If someone tries to mortgage the property with the reported lost deed, would it be valid?" I asked cautiously. The clerk shook his head. "Once the loss notice is published, the previous deed immediately loses its validity. But if you are concerned about the security of your home, you can request a preventive annotation prohibiting disposition. That way, for a period, no one can carry out any transactions with that property." That was exactly what I needed. I immediately filled out the application. In the motives section, I wrote clearly, "Alleged document forgery by co-owner." Leaving the recorder's office, I sighed with relief. The house was safe for now. No matter how many banks Jake went to with that falsified deed, he wouldn't get a penny. The phone rang, an unknown number. When I answered, a voice introduced itself as the real estate agent from Sunshine Realty. "Miss Laura Miller, I'm calling about the sale listing for your house. We have a buyer willing to pay $1.15 million. When could we meet to negotiate?" I was stunned. "Excuse me? I haven't put my house up for sale." On the other end of the line, the agent also seemed confused. "But Mr. Jake Williams came in yesterday with the deed and a photocopy of your ID, saying you had both decided to list the house for sale." I felt my blood boil. Jake, that bastard, had gotten ahead of me. "Listen closely, Miss Agent," I said, containing my rage. "That listing is fraudulent. The deed has been reported lost, and a new one is being issued. If your agency proceeds with this operation without following legal procedures, prepare to receive a lawsuit from my attorneys." I immediately hung up and called Chloe. Hearing it, she was furious. "That Jake is a scoundrel. Laura, we have to move faster." "What do I do now?" I asked. "He might have contacted other real estate agencies. First, we need to notify the main real estate agencies and banks that the house is in litigation. Second, sue Jake immediately for forgery of a public document and signature. And finally," Chloe paused, "what if you sell the house?" "Sell it?" The idea surprised me. I had invested so much effort in that house, from the blueprints to the material selection. Every corner had my touch. But, thinking about it, what was the point of continuing to live there, facing unpleasant memories every day? "I'll sell it," I said firmly. "But after I regain full ownership." "Good decision," Chloe nodded. "Hey, your parents have arrived. Attorney Thompson wants to meet with us this afternoon." At 3 p.m., I met with my parents and Mr. Thompson in a hotel meeting room. My mother, seeing me, hugged me tightly, tears in her eyes. "You're too thin." Mr. Thompson was a sharp-looking middle-aged man. He meticulously reviewed all the evidence I had collected, nodding constantly. "The evidence is very strong. Mr. Williams's conduct clearly constitutes document forgery and fraud. He could face up to 3 years in prison." "Prison?" I shook my head. "I just want a quick divorce and to recover my assets. I don't want to take this to criminal court. Despite everything, it's been 3 years." Mr. Thompson understood my position and nodded. "Then we will focus on the civil route. According to the Civil Code, the fact that Mr. Williams has cohabited with another person as if she were his spouse and donated a large amount of money during the marriage is a serious cause for divorce. In the division of assets, he could receive a smaller share or even nothing." We agreed on the legal strategy. First, Request precautionary measures to freeze Jake's assets. Then, file the divorce petition requesting the redistribution of the house ownership and compensation for the marital assets Jake dissipated. There's one more problem, Mr. Thompson said, adjusting his glasses. Do you know Mr. Williams' current location? The court needs to notify him of the lawsuit. I opened WhatsApp and went into the in-laws group chat. Although I had the notifications silenced, I could see the photos they were uploading. The most recent was a family photo on a Maui beach. Jake was hugging Samantha around the waist, beaming. The caption read, "Family photo, only missing the daughter-in-law." My hands trembled so much I could barely hold the phone. So that was it. Jake's family trip was planned from the start to bring Samantha, and I, his legal wife, had been completely excluded. "They are at the Ritz-Carlton Maui," I said calmly, handing the phone to Mr. Thompson. The photo showed the time and location. Mr. Thompson photographed the evidence and asked me, "Miss Miller, when do you plan to retrieve your belongings from the house?" "I'm going to get everything today," I said decisively. If Jake dared to take his lover on a trip, passing her off as family, I no longer had to maintain appearances. Returning to the house, I began systematically packing my belongings. My career books in the office, the clothes and shoes in the walk-in closet, the dinnerware I had meticulously chosen in the kitchen. 3 years of marriage had accumulated many things. While packing, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw an unknown woman with a folder in her hand. "Is this the residence of Mr. Jake Williams?" she asked politely. "I'm the account manager from ABC Bank. Mr. Williams asked me to pick up some documents." A bank employee. Jake's reaction had been faster than I thought. I opened the door but didn't let her pass. "What documents?" "Mr. Williams told me you were already aware. The property deed for the house and your original ID." Her gaze scanned the house interior over my shoulder. I almost laughed with rage. Jake from afar, sending a bank employee to my house to try and take the documents. "I'm sorry, but I don't know anything about that," I said coldly, "and the deed is not here." The woman looked confused. "But Mr. Williams—" "It doesn't matter what he told you," I interrupted her. "I suggest you check the latest notices from the county recorder's office. This house is currently in litigation, and any bank that grants a mortgage on it will have to assume the legal consequences." Her expression changed, and she hurried away. I closed the door and immediately sent an email to the credit departments of the major banks, officially informing them that the house was in litigation and that any loan application on this asset would be void. By sunset, I finished packing all my things. The moving truck parked at the door. The movers began loading the boxes. I took one last look at the place I once called home. I didn't feel a trace of nostalgia. Wait, something occurred to me. I went back to the bedroom and took a small box from the nightstand. Inside were a pair of pearl earrings, the only keepsake I had left from my maternal grandmother. In 3 years I hadn't worn them for fear of losing them. Now, they finally returned to their owner. I locked the front door and handed the key to the community security guard, informing him of my move. I asked him that any matter related to the house should be handled through my attorney. The guard had known me since the day I moved in. "Ma'am, has something happened?" he asked hesitantly. "From now on, call me Laura, please." I corrected him with a smile. "Thank you for everything, officer." I drove to the hotel where my parents were staying. I felt lighter than ever. On the way, I received a message from Chloe. "Order for precautionary measures approved. All bank accounts in Jake's name have been seized. We also published the lost deed notice in the local legal journal. It is now legally effective." I thanked her and called overseas. On the other end of the line was Emily, my roommate from my student days in London, now a senior executive at a multinational corporation. "Emily, it's been a while." Emily's voice sounded full of energy. "Hey, is that position you mentioned at the Singapore headquarters still open?" I looked ahead and asked with a firm voice. "I think I need a fresh start." A week later, I was sitting in Attorney Thompson's office, reviewing the newly drafted divorce petition. The document detailed the serious causes attributable to Jake: marital cohabitation with another person, document forgery, dissipation of marital assets. Each point was supported by strong evidence. The court has accepted the petition. The notification will be urgently sent to the hotel in Maui where Mr. Williams is staying, Mr. Thompson said, handing me another stack of papers. This is the order for precautionary measures. All bank accounts, stocks, and real estate in Mr. Williams' name have been seized. I nodded and turned to the last page. Jake's reaction was more virulent than I imagined. The same day he received the court notification, he tried to return from Maui, but with his credit cards blocked, he couldn't even buy a plane ticket. In the end, he had to borrow money from his brother. He must be back in New York by now, Mr. Thompson warned me. Do you think you need to lay low for a while? No. I shook my head. It's time to face him face to face. I had barely finished speaking when my phone began ringing frantically. Jake's name flashed on the screen. It was the umpteenth number he had used since I blocked him. I pressed the call button and activated the speaker. Laura, have you lost your mind? Jake's shout resonated in the office. How dare you sue me and seize my accounts? Mr. Williams, I said calmly, I ask you to measure your words. My attorney is recording this conversation. There was a noticeable pause on the other side. Then his tone softened. Laura, honey, do we really have to go through this? We can sit down and talk things out calmly. I smiled disdainfully. When you forged the deed and my signature on the mortgage contract, why didn't you think of talking to me? When you took your lover on a trip, passing her off as your family, why didn't you think of talking? It's all a misunderstanding, Jake hurried to explain. Samantha is just a distant cousin. The family photo thing was a joke, and the deed could have been a court error. We can go correct it. Mr. Williams, I cut short his clumsy lies. I'll see you in court. And I hung up. Mr. Thompson nodded approvingly. Very well managed. Now he'll go all out. We need to be prepared. Indeed. Less than half an hour later, I received an urgent message from Chloe. Jake went to the house with his parents. They're raising a scene at the security booth trying to get them to change the lock. Mr. Thompson and I headed there immediately. From afar, we could already hear my mother-in-law's shrill voice. My son owns this house. Why won't you let him in? Did that woman bribe you, officer? The guard seemed very flustered. Ma'am, Miss Miller has filed a formal lost deed report, and a new legal deed is being issued. Legally, at this moment, she is the only one with rights to the house. That's ridiculous, my father-in-law shouted, pounding the counter. Half of that house belongs to my son. Who does that Laura think she is, not letting him into his own home? I took a deep breath, opened the door, and walked in. Father-in-law, mother-in-law, it's been a while. How was the trip to Maui? That family photo was beautiful. The three turned in unison. Their faces were a sight to behold. Jake's face was purple like a pig's liver, and my mother-in-law looked like she wanted to devour me alive. Laura. My mother-in-law lunged at me, trying to grab my neck. How dare you, you ungrateful woman, treat my son like this? Mr. Thompson intervened, blocking her path. Ma'am, I ask you to control yourself. Assaulting a person is a crime. We are recording the entire situation. My mother-in-law's hand stopped mid-air. She paled and withdrew it. Well. So now you come with attorneys to confront your in-laws, Laura, Jake said, pushing his mother aside and grinding his teeth. What exactly do you want? It's very simple. I looked him straight in the eyes. To divorce and recover all the assets that belong to me. Don't dream it, Jake shouted. My name is on the deed too. Don't think you're going to keep everything. Oh, really? I pulled a folder from my purse. This is the original registration from the county recorder. The house is in co-ownership with shares. My share is 70%, yours is 30%. It is clearly specified. The document you falsified already constitutes a crime. Jake's face went white. Lie. And that's not all, I continued pressing. You forged my signature on a mortgage contract and transferred $330,000 to your lover. All of this is a serious cause for divorce. According to the law, not only would you not be entitled to any part of the house, but you might also have to pay me compensation. My mother-in-law couldn't take it anymore. That can't be. My son has been supporting you for years, and this is how you repay him, biting the hand that feeds you. Supporting me? I almost laughed. Mother-in-law, for 3 years, we had separate accounts. The mortgage, electricity, water, community fees, I paid it all alone. Your son gave me $1,000 a month for expenses, an amount that didn't cover even his own food. My mother-in-law was speechless. My father-in-law looked at me with narrowed eyes. Laura, we are family. There's no need to go to these extremes. Jake made a mistake, but you haven't done things right either. A man can make a small mistake sometimes. A small mistake? I interrupted him. Is forging documents a small mistake? Is dissipating assets a small mistake? Is taking his lover on a trip and passing her off as his wife a small mistake? Jake suddenly lunged, trying to snatch the folder, but Mr. Thompson stopped him. He looked like a cornered beast. Laura, don't push me. I know a lot of people. I can make sure you don't find a job anywhere in New York. Threatening the opposing party, Mr. Thompson said calmly, pressing the record button on his phone. Mr. Williams, this recording will be very damaging evidence against you. Jake finally realized the seriousness of the situation. His attitude changed 180 degrees. Laura, honey, I'm sorry. I made a mistake, truly. Give me a chance. I'll leave Samantha. From now on, I'll do whatever you say. Seeing him cry only disgusted me. There was a time when that same expression of helplessness would soften my heart, and I would forgive his betrayals and lies again and again. It's too late, Jake, I said calmly. I've given you too many chances. Now, I just want to end this marriage as quickly as possible. Don't dream it, he suddenly shouted. I'm going to drag this lawsuit out as long as I can. Let's see who lasts longer. 3, 5 years. You don't decide that, Mr. Thompson said, extending another folder. This is the evidence Miss Miller has compiled about your marital cohabitation with Miss Samantha. It includes bank transfers, intimate photos, conversations. If they are presented in court, not only will the divorce process be accelerated, but you might have to pay compensation for moral damages. Jake slumped into a chair like a deflated balloon. My mother-in-law tried to say something else, but my father-in-law stopped her. Both, finally, realized that their precious son had run into a concrete wall. I give you 3 days, I said, standing up. If you accept the divorce by mutual consent, the house is mine, and the rest of the assets will be divided according to the law. If you want to continue with the lawsuit, we'll see each other in court, but be prepared to face all the legal consequences. Leaving the security booth, I sighed with relief. The sun warmed my face. The phone rang, an email from Emily. The attached file was a job offer for the position of marketing director at the Singapore headquarters. The salary was 3 times my current one. Have you made a decision? Mr. Thompson asked me. I nodded. As soon as I sort things out here, I'm leaving for Singapore to start a new life. That's an intelligent decision. Mr. Thompson smiled. But Jake won't give up easily. Next time, he might resort to even lower tactics. I'll be waiting, I said, looking at the house in the distance. It was once my home, but now it was nothing more than a cold building. This time, I wouldn't back down. 3 days later, Jake, as expected, did not sign the papers. Instead, he started a smear campaign. First, his relatives called me one after another to convince me. Then, he posted a tearful update on Facebook, insinuating that I had left him for a richer man in a better position. Finally, he showed up at my company and filed a complaint with Human Resources, accusing me of immoral conduct. Luckily, I was prepared. When HR called me, I presented my resignation letter and the job offer from the Singapore company. At the same time, Chloe helped me publish a statement on several news portals, clarifying the truth and attaching some evidence of Jake's infidelity and document forgery. Public opinion instantly turned. Jake's social media was filled with comments from outraged internet users. Samantha's workplace even leaked. They became the talk of everyone. The most surprising thing was that a particularly motivated internet user discovered that Samantha was dating 3 men simultaneously. Jake became the laughingstock of the entire country. This time, he's truly finished, Chloe said, satisfied. But we underestimated Jake's audacity. One rainy night, he broke into the house where I was finishing packing my things, along with his brother Patrick. He threatened to kill me if I didn't withdraw the lawsuit. Laura, Jake reeked of alcohol and his eyes were bloodshot. "You ruined my life, so I'm going to ruin yours." Patrick raised his phone and began recording. "Sister-in-law, you better withdraw the lawsuit. Otherwise, this video of your reconciliation with my brother will go viral tomorrow." I understood their plan instantly. They wanted to fake a forced reconciliation, maybe even a sexual assault. My heart pounded, but I kept calm. "Jake, do you know this is a crime?" "Crime?" Jake scoffed. "What crime can there be between a husband and wife? I'll tell you, after tonight, whether you withdraw the lawsuit or not, you're finished." The moment he lunged at me, I pressed the panic button I carried in my pocket. A piercing alarm sounded, and at the same time, 2 security professionals from my old company, who were on guard in the house next door, knocked down the door and subdued the Williams brothers on the floor. "The police are on their way," I said, looking coldly at Jake, who was immobilized on the ground. "This time, with trespassing and attempted assault, you'll be in jail for a good while." Jake's face turned ashen, and Patrick started crying and pleading. "Sister-in-law, it was my brother's idea. Please forgive us." In the distance, the police siren approached. I knew the farce had finally ended. Jake's last, desperate attempt had given me the chance to get rid of him forever. As the police were putting the handcuffs on him, he suddenly turned and asked me, "Laura, did you ever love me?" I was silent for a moment and then replied sincerely, "Yes, but now I only feel contempt." The police car drove away, and the rain stopped. I stood at the door of the house looking at that place loaded with so many memories. I felt strangely at peace. Tomorrow, I would officially list the house for sale. Next week, the first divorce hearing would take place, and in a month, I would be in Singapore, starting a completely new life. The phone rang, a message from my mother. "Daughter, I made your favorite stew. Come for dinner." I smiled and replied, "Of course, Mom. I'm on my way." A star shone in the night sky. I knew it was my guide, pointing the way forward. The day before the first divorce trial hearing, I received a call from the police. Jake, during his trip to Maui, had used the falsified deed to obtain a $1.2 million loan from a small financial company. Now, the company had discovered the forgery and reported him. "Miss Miller, you are one of the victims in this case. We need your collaboration in the investigation." The officer's voice was serious and respectful. I hung up and immediately called Mr. Thompson. Hearing it, he couldn't help but laugh. "This Jake has dug his own grave. With a forgery of a public document of that magnitude, he faces a prison sentence of at least 3 years. "Jail?" I asked. "It's highly likely," Mr. Thompson said confidently. "And this benefits us immensely in the divorce trial. The judge will recognize Jake's severe culpability, and the division of assets will undoubtedly be in your favor." I should have been happy, but I felt a strange mix of emotions. It was ironic that 3 years of marriage ended this way. On the day of the trial, the courts were packed with journalists. Since my story went viral, the case had become a topic of media interest. Someone had even created the hashtag #ForceLaura. Jake arrived late, accompanied by his parents and his attorney. In just 2 weeks, he seemed to have aged 10 years. His eyes were sunken, and his skin was ashen. Seeing me, a flash of resentment crossed his gaze, but it was quickly replaced by fear. He knew he faced not only divorce but also a criminal process. The trial was surprisingly fast. Jake's attorney tried to argue that the money transfers were simple gifts between friends and that Samantha was a distant cousin. But when the judge saw the intimate photos and explicit conversations, even the attorney was speechless. Regarding the forgery of the deed and the signature on the mortgage contract, Jake's defense had nothing to argue. When the judge asked Jake why he had done it, his answer stunned the entire room. "My brother was going to get married, and his fiancée's family wasn't contributing anything. I just wanted to help my family a little." "And that's why you forged documents, a signature, and dissipated marital assets?" the judge asked severely. "Were you aware of the legal consequences of your actions?" Jake lowered his head and said nothing. His mother, in the room, broke down crying inconsolably until a bailiff escorted her out. During a recess, Jake suddenly approached me. "Laura, for the 3 years we were married, couldn't you withdraw the lawsuit?" I'll give you back the house. I don't want the money. It's too late, Jake. I looked at him calmly. I gave you a chance. You chose the worst path yourself. Do you want to destroy me? He shouted, his eyes bloodshot. If I go to jail, my life will be over. You brought it on yourself. I turned my back and stopped looking at him. The final sentence far exceeded my expectations. The judge granted the divorce. The house was entirely awarded to my property. Jake was ordered to return the $330,000 transferred to Samantha. 70% of the savings in Jake's name were awarded to me as compensation for damages. Furthermore, Jake had to pay my legal fees and court costs. As the judge read the sentence, Jake's face turned ashen, and his mother in the room fainted. Journalists flashed their cameras incessantly. Under a rain of flashes, the miserable image of the Williams family was immortalized forever. Leaving the courthouse, the sunlight was dazzling. Mr. Thompson patted me on the shoulder. "Congratulations, Miss Miller. Justice has been served." "Thank you, counselor," I said sincerely. "Without your help, I wouldn't have been able to win so overwhelmingly." "What are your plans now? What will you do with the house?" "I'll sell it," I said without hesitation. "I've already put it in the hands of a real estate agency. Next week, I'm going to Singapore to start my new job at Apex Global. An intelligent décision." "Oh, do you plan to proceed with the criminal case against Mr. Williams?" I thought for a moment. "I don't want to have any more dealings with him. If he pleads guilty and returns the assets, I can withdraw the complaint, but what justice decides, I leave in the hands of the law." "Understood. I will handle the subsequent procedures." Mr. Thompson said goodbye. "I wish you the best in your new life in Singapore." Returning to the apartment I had temporarily rented, I started packing my suitcases. 3 years of marriage, and in the end, I only took 2 suitcases of luggage. The phone wouldn't stop ringing messages of congratulations from my friends. I thanked everyone and turned off the phone. I enjoyed that rare moment of silence. That night, Chloe came to celebrate with a bottle of champagne. "Wow, that jerk Jake is left penniless. What satisfaction." We toasted. The bubbles dissolved on my tongue with a sweet taste. Suddenly, Chloe became serious. "Honestly, Laura, during these 3 years, my biggest worry has been you. I saw how you were losing yourself, how you were no longer the person you used to be." "I know." I gripped the glass. "Sometimes I wonder how I could be so foolish. There were so many signs. Why did I insist on ignoring them?" "For love, silly," Chloe sighed. "Love blinds, but luckily, you finally woke up." The next morning, I received a call from the real estate agency. The house had sold for $1.25 million, $100,000 above the market price. The buyer was a single mother who liked the proximity to schools and the renovation style. "The buyer wants to close the deal as soon as possible. Would tomorrow work for you?" the agent asked cautiously. "No problem," I agreed. "We can complete the paperwork tomorrow." Hanging up, I felt great relief. That house, full of bad memories, was finally going to be part of the past. The deed signing was very quick. After signing the last document, the buyer, an elegant middle-aged woman, took my hand. "Laura, I saw the news. You were very brave. This house in my hands will be filled with love and laughter." My eyes moistened slightly. "Thank you. That's exactly what this house needed." Leaving the notary office, I decided to go back to the house. The new owner was moving in the next day, so no one would be there now. I pushed the familiar door and entered. In the empty rooms, only my footsteps echoed. The sun streamed through the large windows, drawing golden light strips on the floor. I walked through the rooms slowly. Memories rushed to me like a tide. The living room. Jake once overturned the table because the meal I prepared wasn't to his liking. The office. He spent entire nights supposedly working when he was actually on video calls with Samantha. The bedroom. Sometimes drunk, he forced me to fulfill my marital duties. But there were also beautiful moments. The kitchen. I once prepared a big party for my parents. The terrace, drinking wine with my friends and chatting late into the night. The garden. The roses I planted bloomed every year. "Goodbye," I whispered, gently closing the door. This time, I didn't look back. Leaving the community, I ran into Patrick, Jake's brother, at the entrance. He looked haggard. Seeing me, he was surprised, and then rushed toward me. Sister-in-law, I mean, Laura, he stammered. Could you lend me some money? My brother has been detained. My fiancé's family broke off the engagement, and my mother is hospitalized with high blood pressure. I couldn't believe my ears. The Williams family still had the nerve to ask me for money. Patrick, I said calmly, do you know that your brother forged my signature to mortgage the house to buy an apartment for you? His expression changed. I didn't know where the money came from. You and your family are unbelievable, I said scornfully. That your brother is in jail, that your mother is hospitalized, and that your wedding has been canceled is karma. I advise you to worry about your own affairs. Having said that, I turned and left. Patrick, behind me, shouted angrily, Laura, you are a cold, heartless woman. My brother was blind to marry someone like you. I didn't turn around, just waved my hand as a final goodbye. Back at the apartment, I finished packing. The HR department of the Singapore company had sent me a welcome guide and tips for finding accommodation. Emily had also prepared a detailed list of things I would need. A new life was calling me, a brilliant and hopeful life. That night, my mother video called me. My father, beside her, kept asking questions. They insisted on accompanying me to Singapore, but I refused. Mom, Dad, I'm not a little girl anymore, I said, laughing. Besides, Singapore is an incredible country. You have nothing to worry about. You'll always be our little girl, my mother said, wiping a tear. You're going so far away. Take good care of yourself. I will, I reassured her. And nowadays, with how easy travel is, you can come visit me anytime you want. I hung up and stood by the window, contemplating the city where I had lived for almost 10 years. Under the neon lights, how many stories of love and heartbreak were unfolding. Mine was just one more. The phone rang again. It was Chloe. Laura, the court just notified me. That jerk Jake confessed. The prosecution is requesting 3 years for him. His attorney told me he wants to see you one last time. No, I said firmly. I have nothing more to say to him. I knew it, Chloe laughed. Do you have your tickets? Do you want me to take you to the airport? Tomorrow at 3 p.m., you don't need to come. You know I hate goodbyes. Have a good trip. Suddenly, Chloe's voice cracked. Call me often, and don't forget your friends when you find a new boyfriend. What are you saying? You're my best friend. I felt a lump in my throat. As soon as I settle in, I'll invite you to Singapore. The night advanced. I finished packing the last suitcase. I turned off the light and lay in bed. Tomorrow at this time, I would be 30,000 feet high, flying towards a completely new life. I closed my eyes, and the memories of the last 3 years passed before me like a slow-motion movie. Pain, betrayal, struggle, awakening. In the end, everything had become the force driving me to grow. I remembered a phrase I had read somewhere. There are paths you must walk alone, tears you must wipe yourself, and pains you must endure in solitude. But when you overcome all that, you will find a better version of yourself. Tomorrow, the sun would rise again, and I would no longer be the Laura who tolerated humiliation. Changi Airport, Singapore, a bustling hub of people. I pushed my luggage cart and, stepping out, saw Emily holding a sign with my name. We hadn't seen each other in 3 years. She had short hair and an elegant business suit. She seemed even more determined than during our time in the UK. Laura. She ran to hug me enthusiastically. Welcome to your new life. Emily helped me settle into an apartment near the office and invited me to try authentic local Singaporean cuisine. At the table, she cautiously asked about my divorce. I summarized it briefly. What a bastard. He should rot in jail. I smiled and shook my head. The past is the past. Now I just want to look forward. The new job was challenging but highly stimulating. As marketing director for the Asia-Pacific region, I was responsible for brand promotion in several countries. The busy routine left me no time to think about the past. Every day was full and meaningful. A month later, I received an email from Mr. Thompson. Jake had been sentenced to 3 years in prison for public document forgery and fraud. At the same time, the court had executed the divorce judgment. The savings in Jake's name were transferred to my account. Samantha was also ordered to return part of the money. The email included a clipping from the crime section of a national newspaper with the headline, "Husband's Deed Forgery Fraud, Wife's Swift Divorce." In the photo, Jake appeared surrounded by journalists, looking pathetic. I calmly closed the email. I felt nothing. On the weekend, I attended a yacht party in Marina Bay, organized by the company. The night view of Singapore was a spectacle of lights. My colleagues toasted happily. Jackson, the marketing VP, approached me with a glass of champagne. "Laura, I heard you left an important position in the US to come to Singapore. You are very brave." I smiled without saying anything. He didn't know I hadn't come for my career, but to escape a past I didn't want to return to. 3 months passed, and I fully adapted to the rhythm of life in Singapore. Work was going smoothly, and I had made new friends. Sometimes I posted photos of food and landscapes of Singapore on Instagram. Chloe was always the first to like and comment, so jealous. One Tuesday morning, while preparing the quarterly report, the phone rang, an unknown number with a US area code. "Hello?" I hesitated a moment before answering. "Is this Laura Miller?" A weak, feminine voice said. I nearly dropped the phone. It was my ex-mother-in-law. How had she gotten my new number? "I am Jake's mother." "What do you want?" I asked coldly. "Laura," her voice cracked. "I was wrong. Everything that happened was my fault. Please forgive my Jake. He's been sick twice in jail already. The doctor says if he continues like this—" "Ma'am," I interrupted her. "First, you are not my mother. Second, if Jake is in jail, it's because he earned it. And finally, do not contact me again." "How can you be so cruel?" Her voice became shrill. "You were husband and wife. How can you stand idly by while he dies in prison? If he's truly sick, the prison will have its own medical services," I said calmly. "And my attorney will send you a formal harassment notification." I hung up immediately and called Mr. Thompson. He was also surprised that my ex-mother-in-law had gotten my number and promised to investigate the source and take legal action. This incident was like a small stone thrown into a calm lake. It caused a few ripples, and then everything returned to tranquility. 2 weeks later, I received a message from an unknown person on LinkedIn. "Dear Miss Miller, I am Irene Vance, HR Director at Nexus Corp. I've heard you've had great success in Singapore. I've taken the liberty of contacting you. We are currently looking for a marketing director with international experience. I was wondering if you might be interested in returning to the US to continue your career." Nexus Corp was an industry giant in the US. The marketing director position had always been my goal, but returning, I wasn't ready to face that place full of painful memories. I replied courteously, "I am very satisfied with my current job and have no plans to change in the short term." Irene responded quickly, "I understand, but this is a unique opportunity. $250,000 annual salary, stock options, reporting directly to the CEO. If you change your mind, don't hesitate to contact me. $250,000. Double my current salary." I stared at the message for a long time. In the end, I didn't delete it. Time flew by, and I had been in Singapore for 6 months. During this time, my team managed to close 2 major contracts. The CEO publicly congratulated me at the annual meeting. Emily, saying I was the fastest adapting foreign employee, even encouraged me to apply for permanent residency. But the offer to return to the US kept circling in my head. It wasn't about the position itself, but suddenly, I realized I was running away from the place where Jake was, where the painful memories were, running away from the weak person I had been in the past. One weekend, I went alone to Sentosa Island. Sitting on the white sand, looking at the blue sea, I suddenly understood that true detachment is not running away, but having the ability to face things and still choose not to look back. That night, I wrote to Irene, expressing my interest in talking more. At the same time, I contacted Mr. Thompson to ask if, in case of returning, Jake and his family could harass me. "Mr. Williams is still serving his sentence. He has at least 2 years left to get out," he replied. "His parents, after the warning from my firm, won't dare to bother you. Also, your reputation in the US is very good. Many women consider you an example of fighting against domestic abuse." "An example?" I smiled bitterly. I was just a normal woman who, when cornered, fought back. The interviews with Nexus Corp went very well. After a video interview, they even offered to arrange an in-person meeting in Singapore. The president of the Asia-Pacific region had dinner with me and explained in detail the company's expansion plans. "Miss Miller, your trajectory has profoundly impressed us," the president said sincerely. "Not only for your professional capacity, but for the strength and courage you have demonstrated. Those are the fundamental values of our corporate culture." Thus, after 8 months in Singapore, I decided to return. Emily, though saddened, understood my choice. Follow your heart. Singapore will always be here for you. The resignation process was fast. The CEO tried to retain me, offering a 30% raise, but I declined. It wasn't a matter of money. I needed to complete my own ritual of redemption, to return to the place that had hurt me and start a new life with my head held high. A week before returning, I received a message from Chloe with juicy news. "Samantha cheated on your ex-husband. She went to a conjugal visit and hooked up with another inmate's family member. They teamed up, fleeced Jake of what little he had left, and ran off." I should have felt satisfied, but I felt a strange melancholy. Jake, who had calculated so much, was ultimately betrayed by everyone. Was this karma? The plane landed at JFK Airport. It was October, in the middle of autumn. Through the window, I saw the blue sky and the yellow leaves. It was a breathtaking beauty. While waiting for my luggage, the phone rang. A welcome message from Irene. At the end, she added a phrase, "Oh, tomorrow night we have a welcome party at the company. The CEO wants to take the opportunity to introduce you to the team. Would that work for you?" I responded affirmatively and took a deep breath. I pushed my cart and walked out the arrival's door. The sun, filtering through the glass dome, warmed my face. "Laura, welcome home," I told myself. The Nexus Corp welcome party was held in a restaurant on the 80th floor of one of the skyscrapers in Manhattan. I chose a dark red suit jacket, professional but without diminishing the festive mood. "Director Miller, I've heard a lot about you." The CEO, Mr. Anderson, was an affable man in his 50 seconds. He shook my hand with just the right amount of force. "Your case has been studied in my MBA class." I smiled and thanked him, a little surprised inside. My divorce? A business school case study? As the party began, I understood why. Mr. Anderson's wife, an elegant and intellectual woman, approached me. "Laura, I'm Professor Eleanor Vance, law professor at Columbia University. I also run the Center for Women's Rights Studies. Your case is a perfect example of how an educated woman can use the weapon of the law to protect herself." "I'm flattered, but I think you exaggerate," I said, a little overwhelmed. At that moment, I only reacted instinctively when cornered. Precisely that instinct is what deserves to be studied. The professor's eyes shone with intelligence. "Too many women in similar situations choose to endure, but you demonstrated with facts that the law is an effective weapon to protect our rights." Midway through the party, a middle-aged man in a suit approached me and introduced himself. "Director Miller, a pleasure. I'm the group's legal advisor. I've heard wonderful things about you." While we exchanged a few words, a young woman timidly joined us. "Excuse me, are you Director Laura Miller?" She introduced herself as an intern in the marketing department and told me that my story had given her the courage to leave a toxic relationship. "Seeing you now gives me the faith to believe that I too can start over." Her eyes were full of tears. In that moment, I suddenly felt that my story could have a real meaning. It wasn't just my personal story, but that of many women suffering in unhappy marriages. At the end of the party, Mr. Anderson arranged a chauffeur to take me to the hotel. In the car, he handed me a folder. "Director, this is the invitation for the Business Forum towards Europe next month. The group has decided that you will represent us and give the opening speech." I opened it. It was the most important forum in the sector. Normally, only executives at the VP level or higher attended. "I don't think I have enough experience." "Don't be modest," Mr. Anderson laughed. "Your results at the Singapore headquarters are unquestionable. Besides," he added with a significant tone, "your personal experience perfectly fits the theme of this year's forum, the reinvention of leadership in times of change." Back at the hotel, I couldn't sleep. Through the window, the spectacular Manhattan night was visible, a splendor different from Singapore's. In just 1 year, my life had completely turned around from being a disrespected wife to a senior executive at a multinational, from being a victim who endured humiliation to being an example that inspired others. The phone rang, a message from Chloe. "How are you? First day back and already adjusted? Let's catch up tomorrow." I replied with a smiling emoji. "Sure, I have 1,000 things to tell you." The next day, I met Chloe for lunch at a quiet cafe. As soon as she saw me, she hugged me tightly. "Wow, director, that charisma is noticeable from 100 feet away." I laughed and playfully hit her. "Stop the nonsense and tell me, how is your promotion to partner at the firm going?" "Don't even talk to me about it." Chloe waved her hand. "The old guys keep saying I'm too young," but she lowered her voice conspiratorially. "I just landed a big case. Jake's mother sued Samantha for restitution of assets." "What?" I almost spat out my coffee. What soap opera is this now? It turned out that my ex-mother-in-law was alleging that Samantha had defrauded Jake and was claiming the return of a total of $500,000 in donations. Samantha, for her part, alleged it was compensation for her lost youth. The two women had created a spectacle in court, the mother-in-law calling Samantha names, and Samantha replying that she hadn't known how to raise her son. The judge was stunned, Chloe recounted, amused. I shook my head. I didn't want to know any more about that farce. Jake and his disastrous life had nothing more to do with me. "Oh," Chloe said, suddenly getting serious. "I have to tell you something important. Jake might be released from jail 6 months early for good behavior." My heart skipped a beat. "He'll probably be out next month." She looked at me worriedly. "Will this affect your decision to come back and thrive here?" I thought for a moment and shook my head. "No, New York is huge. It's not easy for us to run into each other. Besides, the Laura of now is no longer the one who lets herself be trampled. That's the Laura I know." Chloe raised her cup. "To your new life." The following days were a whirlwind. I officially took control of the marketing team and started building my own staff. I reviewed the speech for the business forum towards Europe again and again until it was perfect. On the day of the forum, I chose a royal blue tailor-made suit, professional but still feminine. In front of the mirror, I barely recognized the person looking back at me, confident, imposing, with a gaze full of conviction. Next, with the theme, "The Reinvention of Leadership in Times of Crisis," let's welcome the Marketing Director of Nexus Corp, Miss Laura Miller. Amidst applause, I walked onto the stage. Under the spotlights, I couldn't see the faces of the audience clearly, but that calmed me down. A year ago, I was in the biggest crisis of my life. My voice was clear and firm. My marriage was broken, trust had crumbled, and my own value had been completely denied. I shared how, in the midst of that crisis, I had found myself again, how I had transformed pain into the strength to grow. At the end of my speech, I said, "True leadership does not reside in controlling others, but in controlling our own lives. When we have the courage to face our deepest fears, we discover our greatest strength. Thank you." The entire auditorium stood up and applauded. Afterward, attendees surrounded me to exchange business cards. Among them were heavyweights in the industry. Mr. Anderson, in the distance, gave me a thumbs up. His face reflected the joy of having discovered a treasure. In the car back to the company, I received a message from an unknown number. "Laura, I'm out of jail. I heard you're doing very well. Congratulations. Could we meet once? I have so much to tell you." It was Jake. My fingers hesitated over the screen. Finally, I deleted the message and blocked the number. There is no need to retrace steps or reunite with people we left behind. The video of my forum speech went viral and brought me some unexpected opportunities. First, interview requests from several economic magazines. Then, an invitation to participate as a pundit on a television show. Finally, a publishing house contacted me to propose writing a book on female leadership. "Director, you've become the company star," my young assistant told me, smiling. "The reception desk says you've been receiving many flowers from admirers lately." I shook my head and asked her to instruct reception to reject all gifts of unknown origin. Fame is a double-edged sword, and I knew it well. One Friday afternoon, while reviewing the quarterly report, Irene knocked on my door. "Director, next month is International Women's Day." The Federation of Women Entrepreneurs has invited you as a representative of successful women to give a speech at a high-level forum. The CEO has already approved it. Take a look. I received an invitation with golden borders. It clearly read, "The growth and empowerment of women in the new era." The list of invited speakers included famous businesswomen, academics, and artists. My name was among them. "Don't you think this is too much for me?" I said, a little worried. "Don't be modest." Irene patted my shoulder. "Director, do you know what they call you online? The Queen of the Counterattack, the modern Joan of Arc. Your story has inspired so many women." That night, I video called my parents to give them the good news. My mother, emotional, couldn't stop crying, and my proud father said he would tell the whole family to watch the live broadcast. "Laura," my mother suddenly said, lowering her voice, "that Jake fellow came to the house a few days ago." My smile froze. "What did he want?" "He said he came to apologize," my father continued. "The truth is, he looks very haggard and much more polite. He said he knew he made a mistake, that he didn't expect you to forgive him, but he would like the opportunity to compensate you." "Mom, Dad, you didn't give him my number, did you?" "Of course not," my mother hurried to say. "Your father nearly swept him out the door." I sighed with relief and asked them, please, not to receive him again. I hung up and stood by the window, contemplating the lights of New York. Jake's appearance had been like a small stone thrown into the calm of my heart, but the ripples quickly dissipated. The Women's Day Forum was held with great pomp at the Metropolitan Convention Center. I prepared a speech titled, "The Path of Personal Reinvention for Women, From Home to the Professional World." I shared how I had gotten out of a toxic relationship and reclaimed my self-worth. When we yield to others the right to define us, we lose our most precious freedom, and true empowerment begins by reclaiming that right. My voice resonated in the hall. Divorce is not terrible. The terrible thing is not having the capacity to divorce. Singleness is not terrible. The terrible thing is not having the capacity to live alone. The audience erupted in thunderous applause. I saw many women with teary eyes, including my mother. She and my father had traveled to New York especially to attend the forum. Afterward, a gray-haired woman, accompanied by an assistant, approached me. I recognized a famous businesswoman. "Laura, what a great speech." She took my hand affectionately. "Sincere stories always have the greatest strength. I hope you continue to raise your voice for women." Excited, I didn't know what to say. I just nodded. The photographer's flashes wouldn't stop, immortalizing the moment. That night, the photo graced the front pages of the main economic newspapers. At the reception following the forum, I received countless cards and collaboration proposals. I was a little tired of dealing with so many people when a familiar figure appeared at the ballroom door. It was Jake. He was wearing a badly fitting suit and carrying a bouquet of flowers, trying to sneak into the event. Security stopped him, and a struggle ensued. I hesitated for a moment and approached. "Laura." Jake's eyes lit up when he saw me. "I just wanted to congratulate you in person. You look stunning." He had lost a lot of weight and had deep dark circles under his eyes. Nothing remained of his former demeanor. The bouquet of flowers he carried was cheap and looked pathetic. "Jake," I said calmly, "please leave. I know I don't have the right to see you." His voice cracked. "I was wrong, truly. Samantha ran off with all my money. My mother had a heart attack from the distress and is hospitalized, and I lost my job. It's my karma." Seeing him cry elicited no emotion from me. The wound of the past was so deep that I no longer had the strength even to hate him. "Let's leave the past behind," I said. "I wish you the best, but don't look for me again." Jake suddenly knelt. "Give me a chance." "Security," I turned and called. "Please escort this gentleman out." 2 security guards grabbed Jake by the arms and dragged him toward the exit. He resisted, shouting as he turned to look at me. "Laura, you are a heartless woman after everything we've been through." Everyone in the room turned to look and whispered. I composed myself, raised my head, and returned to the event. My mother received me with a worried face. I hugged her gently. "Mom, I'm fine." After that night, Jake never appeared in my life again. Some said he had gone south to work in construction, others that he had returned to his hometown to care for his sick mother. Whatever the case, it was no longer my concern. The success of the forum continued for a while. My LinkedIn followers soared, and every day I received hundreds of consultation messages and collaboration proposals. The company seized the opportunity to appoint me director of the newly created Center for Female Leadership Development and granted me an additional package of stock options. With the arrival of spring, I bought an apartment in Manhattan. On the day of the signing, I made sure the deed was solely in my name. In the empty apartment, I video called Chloe to toast virtually. "Wow, director, now you are a true success story," Chloe said on the other side of the screen, biting an apple. "But what about love? Any news?" "My job is my love," I laughed, changing the subject. "Hey, and your promotion to partner? Thanks to you. I got it." Chloe raised her glass triumphantly. "Now the old guys at the firm call me counselor, with all due respect." We toasted through the screen, celebrating our respective successes. I hung up and stepped out onto the balcony. The scent of lilacs floated in the April air of Manhattan. In the distance, the skyscrapers of downtown were visible. The lights shone like a galaxy. A year ago, I was still the Laura trapped in an unhappy marriage. Today, I had transformed into a butterfly, living a life I hadn't even dared to dream of before. The phone rang. An email from the editor of the publishing house. He sent me the revised manuscript. My memoir, titled Rebirth, was about to be published at the end of the year. The editor suggested I add a chapter on how to build healthy relationships. Because, he wrote in the email, many readers will wonder if, after everything you've been through, you still believe in love. I sat at the desk, opened the laptop, and on a blank page, I wrote a line. "I believe in love, but I believe more in myself." True security never comes from the promise of another, but from confidence in oneself. Outside, a crescent moon rose silently, tinting the world with silver.